Hello, Sean and Horn.
Hello.
All right, so we're going to be diving into episode 6, Kin. This episode is pretty much just about family, and I guess you say relationship. You know, if someone's actually a family member who's not really a family member. So overall, what do you think, Horn?
Overall, it was a good episode. I have some things I will share words about later, but overall I was very happy with the episode.
And Sean?
I thought it was outstanding. I'm not sure it was as good as the last episode, but that's not a knock because the last episode was so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that was fair.
I think it's I would say, generally speaking, except for episode 2, all the episodes are so good. I have a hard time picking what my favorite is, and I think the last one that focused on Henry and Sam and that crew getting out of town.
Yeah,
might have been my overall favorite, but the one before that, I said the same thing, and I appreciate that. By the way, once again, no zombies in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, driving home the point that that's not really what this is about, or it's not the real appeal, or what really makes it good. Is it having it in the backdrop sets up the world. There are a lot of people who are fans of zombie stuff. I'm kind of curious, actually, if that slice of the population is loving the show or disappointed with it. But my expectation is outside that slice, people are hugely surprised, and myself included.
Yeah.
One, how little zombie stuff there is, and how good it is, zombie stuff or otherwise.
Fair. No, I'm personally a huge fan of zombie stuff, and going into now, obviously the game has a lot more infected or undead. Well, there's technically undead, but anyways, and I was very impressed with the show or the game, and I'm more impressed with the show on how they deal with certain directions, not involving it sometimes. I think it's overall better for the show, just because when it comes right down to it, the characters are the most important thing, and they focus on the characters and building those characters, not building an infected that is irrelevant. That's the overall world thing. All right, so we're gonna dive in to this is an interesting thing, because we were talking about how long does it take to get to Tommy in general, and I think we calculated like a week, maybe or two, maybe it was like
months.
You did say months, yeah.
I said months, and then you guys looked up the distance and how long it was, and I think it was a week's worth of hours.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
But
if they did it nonstop, it was supposed to be. It was supposed to have been
how many days you could actually travel, the fact you'd have to stop for food and scavenging and rest and all this other stuff. And I went back to saying months, and I feel good. I was almost exactly 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. 3 months.
Maybe they were in Wyoming for a couple weeks before that moment it started on, but yeah.
And I forgot that
they didn't get a car. They didn't get well, they eventually got horses, but
yeah. I also forget too. Even if they knew exactly where to go, it would take that long. If they didn't know where he was, of course it's going to take longer to figure out, once they're in Wyoming, where is he exactly? That could be a month alone.
Is he?
Yeah. So, I liked how they jumped to just 3 months.
I also like how they had the cabin scene, which was not in the game, by the way.
Yeah.
But it showed that they didn't know where they were. They don't know the area, so it's like you're like.
I did appreciate the scene a lot. It was, in a lot of ways, a comic relief.
I heard a lot of people joking around me like, patch them into the game, because that's such a good scene.
Yeah, I didn't realize that guy was from I think Dances with Wolves. He's been in a lot of stuff. I guess
he's been in a ton of things.
But his demeanor was I thought it was just so funny how they wrote stuff, and the wife, just sitting on the chair. She's just
why didn't you shoot him? Well, gun's over there.
All the way over there in the other room.
You made him soup? Of course.
Yeah. Just I love the line where he's like, Joel asks, "Where are we on the map?" And he's like, telling his wife, you're like, did you tell him the truth? Are you telling me the truth? I don't know. Because obviously they do that all the time in movies or shows or something like that, where they point. I don't know, just a smart, witty moment to write.
And it reminds us that there's a trust issue in the same way that Joel didn't know if he could trust Henry or Sam, and Kathleen didn't trust Henry or Sam, and that, you know, on and on. I think it was kind of lighthearted, but reminds us, and it, you know, came into play later in this very episode, how there's this sort of distrust of strangers. You can't be sure what people have done or what they're planning, you know. And also, again, like you said, it's kind of a good reminder that, like, they didn't necessarily have a map or a good map or an up-to-date map. You know, they might know this road leads to Wyoming, but where in Wyoming does it lead? Where do they go once they get there? Street signs might not exist anymore. You know.
Yeah, we missed all the street signs in the forest.
Yeah, they might have even made decisions to not travel on main roads. It might be, you know,
safer,
susceptible to bandits or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened in Kansas City.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, overall, I'd love the cabin scene, and you could argue maybe it's like a callback to where they really talk. I mean, they talk in a house, but they talked in a cabin that was distanced from the settlement. You know, maybe it's a little callback to that, kind of. I mean, maybe it's far-fetched, but you know, in the game, Sean, Ellie runs away and pretty much finds like this cabin that's like in the middle of nowhere. So they kept everything in the town, which was, I think, a better decision.
No, that whole cabin scene, I'm sorry, for the game, that was just a pace killer. Like,
exactly. That's why I was, well, we'll get into that later, but yes.
that was
in the game. You didn't think that cabin scene was well placed.
But also, the cabin scene was easily probably the best scene in the game. However, the things surrounding it
was ridiculous.
Not.
Mm-hmm. So, yes. So yeah, the great scene, you know, fun acting, great acting, witty dialogue, whatever. But they go out of the cabin. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. But one more thing. It does also, I don't know, point out to remind us that here and there, kind of like Bill and Frank, there are people who carved out a living. They you know, that people mostly who were kind of hermits in the first place, right? Were able to make it. Yeah. So
and that know how to live off the land and stuff.
It makes sense, that like the people who are in rural or just away from society are probably going to be the most safest. You know, they're going to be cautious probably too, because they were probably cautious beforehand. You know, or didn't like how society runs stuff. You're absolutely right. I mean, in Walking Dead, you know, there's Daryl, who's, you know, a huge fan favorite, and his character was kind of like that. Like, he was just not, you know, he could rely on himself, you know, and he lived in a cabin and all stuff like that, you know. So it is interesting that, like, it is easier to survive sometimes by yourself, or, you know, with a small group of people.
Maybe easier to survive, but not thrive, not be happy.
That's true. Yes.
There's a reason that humans form cities and have sports teams and book clubs and podcasts, right? We want to interact with each other. For the most part, most people want to have social interaction, but some people don't, and so those people remove themselves from society, and maybe they're able to survive when some catastrophe occurs. But I feel like they're missing a lot of humanity when a catastrophe doesn't occur.
Actually, it's funny because, like, even the lady, the wife, said that he's like, you know, I removed myself from society. Well, you did. I don't know. Which is probably also why she kind of invited these two in. You know, she was lonely. Probably.
Same thing with Frank. Yeah.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
But also, I think it was really important, that both for the Bill and Frank scene and for this, to show the viewer that people have meted out a life for themselves, not in the quarantine zones.
Yeah.
Before we saw Tommy, because in the game we did not see that. Before Tommy's settlement, We had no clue about that. All we saw were the bandits, which were kind of just random, and we didn't really know much about them, and then the quarantine zones. And that was our only perspective of people on the outside, besides Bill, who just kind of existed.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It would be interesting to get some perspective on the bandits, because right now they're just nameless bad guys.
Yep.
Well, I think most of them are dead now, but
yeah, but not all of them. We just saw some in this episode, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't even all get killed.
That's
and
true.
At one point, those guys were Tommy and Joel. Those guys right now, they're just nameless bad guys to us, but we know they are people that have potential for good. So
yes.
Whether the show focuses on that at any point, I don't know, but I think that would be interesting to for next episode to follow those three guys that survived. Where do they go next? How starving are they? Why were they willing to attack someone? How desperate are they? What tragedies do they have? Daughters that were killed, and on.
That's fair. So the two leave the cabin. Ellie steals like the smaller rabbit. Someone just compared this, which was interesting, to Sarah. That like they're both small in their life. Basically, the rabbit symbolized the younger people, because she could have got the bigger one, which was, I guess, Joel's symbolism of Joel. Anyways, I thought that was an interesting parallel. But Joel has like a panic attack. He basically is. I feel like he's having an issue with himself. He realizes that he's starting to care, and he's been like stuck in reality for such a long time, ignoring what happened to him with Sarah, and it's now like coming to a head. The closer he gets to fulfilling his destination with Tommy, the worse these panic attacks, I feel like, are the worst. He's conflicted with himself. Thoughts?
At first, I thought it was having a heart attack or something. I didn't realize. I mean, not to say it wasn't at least partly physical, but through the course of it, we realized it's at least partly, not largely, psychological.
Mm.
No, I'm sorry. I've had a lot of those. I knew exactly what a panic attack was the second I saw it. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because obviously they don't have this in the game, him having panic attacks. So this is a new thing, and I'm fine with it. Obviously, it makes sense with how they're building Joel in this series. But they go and they're still trying to track down. They're trying to track down this death river, the river of death, or whatever they call it. That the people in the cabin said is a bad area. And they have they camp out, at a near cave or something like that, and they start talking about like Ellie brings up the Sam issue. She's like, I tried to cure him, and it was stupid, but I tried to anyways. And it's nice to see like her thoughts, / Joel's reaction to that. Plus they also talked about like their future, like, okay, I cure myself, what do I do? Or what do you want to do next? And Tommy talks about how he just wants to live on a ranch with sheep, and Ellie wants to be
Joel.
Sorry.
Tommy. Joel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. Joel, my bad. And Ellie wants to be an astronaut. Obviously it's kind of impossible doing that in this day and age, because
not with that attitude.
Maybe in the far future you get, but well, again, I guess back then too, they thought it was impossible and they did it anyways. Like when people started going into space.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little Easter egg, I guess, to the show, just or the game, because they want that too, to a degree. Thoughts?
I thought it was good. I think it was like showing us little signs of hope that they have, something that maybe it's kind of new to Joel to even think about. He hasn't allowed himself to have any hope. Maybe connected why he's having a panic attack. Like having more hope means you can have more of a failure. As you get closer to Wyoming, when they first head off, on some level, Joel's just going through the motions, maybe thinking that this matters. The girl's going to die anyway. All these other thoughts that keep him from getting too connected. But the more connected he gets to her emotionally, the more committed he is to this mission, the closer they get to the completion of the mission, the more it starts to affect his mind, the more it starts to, the fear of failure starts to overcome him,
Yeah.
Never mind other fears that might not be clear to us so far, but we don't exactly know what terms he left Tommy on, right? It seemed like there was some kind of contention, and maybe as he approaches that can overwhelm him a little bit too.
That's true.
And I'm skipping. I'll save it when we get to that section, but
okay.
Never thought along that line when we get to Tommy.
Horn?
I don't know. Like it's the same thing that Sean said. Like the more hope you have, the more you have to lose.
Yeah,
and it's great to have hope, and it's great to have something to fight for, but it's also just not like before. It was just, oh, if he dies, okay, well, great, that's it, the nightmare's over. But now it's like, well, now the entire future kind of rests in my hands, and I'm starting to care for this person.
Yeah.
And all of that could just be gone. And the entire potential for a happy future is just gone.
Yep. So they get up the next day. Joel's like mutter. Did anybody even catch what he said? I actually didn't. It's not in the subtitles. He maybe it's just mutter, but I do wonder if he was like saying something and you just couldn't hear it. Well, it's hard to hear. But
at what point?
When he was sleeping and he was keeping watch and he passes out, and when he wakes up, he was muttering something and he realizes Ellie is keeping pushing. She's like, he told her, you should have got me up. It may be minor. I assume it had something to do with Sarah. But he's been Ellie has mentioned it multiple times that he mutters in his sleep. I'm curious on, it's like I said, it's probably related to Sarah. I just thought it's interesting. I
remember that moment. I don't remember that he was muttering. I don't remember having a thought, what did he say? And I don't know if that's because I heard what he said or if it's because I didn't realize he said anything. It's enough to make me want to go back.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I rewatched it too, and I was like, "Oh, he was muttering," because then I rewound it. I was like, "What's he saying?" I'm like, but he gets like mad at Ellie because he's like, "You should have woke me up," which honestly, I think she did the right call. You can't have Joel being exhausted all the time. He needs to learn to trust her, which is part of the issue probably, and he feels like he's responsible for her. Like he takes all the burden, and doesn't ever want her to be obviously in danger.
I went back and rewatched the clip and had everything up to max and muted you guys. It was just gibberish.
It was gibberish.
It was not English. It was not Spanish. It was not English. It was gibberish.
It could have been Dorn.
Must be Italian.
Also, speaking of Dorn, this is a small thing. Every time I hear Bella Ramsey's name, I think that was her character's name in Game of Thrones and not her real name, because Ramsey is a name from Game of Thrones. Yeah. And so I was like, no, what's the actor's name? And I'm like, wait, no, that is real. She was like, I don't even remember what she was.
Lady Mormont.
I'm trying to remember what her Liana Mormont.
Liana, that's it. Yeah.
It was just like,
you're right. When I first heard her name, I was like, wait, Ramsey? Like, yeah, it threw me off too.
Like Gordon
Ellie's
Ramsay.
last name in Last of Us.
What's that?
Ellie does not have
What's
a
her last
last
name
name.
in The Last of
Ooh,
Us?
she probably has the last name. You could probably research it. And now I'm actually curious. Actually, Warren, you research it.
Yeah.
But she definitely does because they said Joel's last name multiple times too.
Miller.
What's up, Miller? You said?
Miller. Well,
Okay.
no, that's Joel's last name.
That's what I meant.
Miller.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not a bigger deal because we never, like I don't know what it is, and I've played the game 2 times. Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, the River of Death. So they get up.
Can you give me like 1 minute? I got to take care of my cat real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry about this. I don't know if this is a good moment maybe to talk about a spoiler thing or a difference in the game or whatever, but I'll be back in like 1 minute.
That's fair.
So her last name is Williams.
William. Oh. I don't think I've ever known that. That's such a basic name. I feel like I would have remembered that.
Okay, so if he's deafened. All right, spoiler talk. Next episode is all a flashback.
Yes, I know that. Yes, you're absolutely right.
So it's covering the entirety of the DLC.
Which you and me kind of like brought it. I didn't know which point that was placed, and you told me, and so I was like, "This makes complete sense why they would do that here and not earlier or whatever." I have not played the DLC. I'm actually wanting to play the DLC. Hopefully this week, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of callbacks to making it as accurate to the DLC as possible. But I know you played it.
Yeah, because the DLC was very good.
Yeah, I heard nothing but good things about the DLC. And it's free. I have it on the remastered. Like it just comes with it, and I could play it at any point. It's like a side thing. I can't remember what they call it, but anyways, it's definitely available.
I'm also very glad that they're keeping with my pacing. I did say that there was going to be a little bit of weirdness between the university and the next part, which of course I was trying not to say anything when Sean was talking about that. I'm like, we do know about this group. I was trying so hard not to say anything. He's like, hopefully we'll find out more about these guys. I'm like, oh, we will.
I forget that they were those guys. I was thinking they were just random bandits in the show.
No, those are David's people.
Oh, that's going to be good. Because I forget that. Yeah, I'm actually curious on how they're going to deal with the situation in general. But anyways,
University is the worst part of this episode, in my opinion.
Interesting. I can't wait to hear that.
I thought it was just crammed. I wish they had given it its own episode.
I actually understand why they did it personally, because they have so much they still have to. There's only 3 more episodes.
I agree, but just bump it to 10 episodes. Make this episode 45 minutes where they just do the stuff and end at the cabin. Next episode, and give us the cliffhanger that maybe they're going to split up.
I think
next episode start with Joel. That way, both the user and Joel kind of can feel like they've had time to think about it.
Yeah, I'm actually curious if Sean thinks that it's over. But we'll get to that.
So that's what I was thinking about that, and then getting to see them in the next episode, then be like, no, okay, you get to choose whether me or him, and then she immediately chooses Joel, like no hesitation. That would have been great for the beginning of the episode. They get to talk, they're really bonding, and then at the end of the episode, the last 10 minutes is they introduce the bandits. The bandits are attacking. It doesn't have to be a big fight scene, but I wanted to see.
Oh wait, no, sorry, my bad.
I just wanted to see, because the way they handled it in the game was so much better. I'm going to talk about this game when we get back to it, but like having Joel get pushed off and impaled instead of just randomly impaled by the bat breaking, I thought that was so lame. It was so stupid.
I can't remember how he got impaled in the first place, but
no, in the first place, in the university, they were on the second floor. They had just gotten the voicemail saying that, we had everyone had to. Okay,
all right,
but at least we've got all that done.
Yes. All right. So,
aha, hi, Strim.
yes. So we get to the River of Death. Well, actually, first they get to a dam in the game. This is like an area that you have to do a puzzle. So I liked how they call back to the dam. And they talked about something with like power. I guess the dam run. You can get power through the dam. I actually don't.
It's a hydroelectric dam. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And
that's
she's
the
like,
purpose of most dams.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know about that.
The movement of water turns a turbine. That spinning turbine generates electricity. There's more to it, but that's the fundamentals.
Yeah, I love how
you don't have to like burn coal. You don't have to like cause pollution or whatever. It can also control like rain flow and irrigation and stuff like that. But it's
that's cool.
Very important to modern society as a source of power.
Sounds like it, yeah. And how Joel's like, I don't know how it works, and she's like, you could have just made up something. Call back into like when he made up the cipher, or was it called cipher?
The siphon.
Siphon. Thank you.
But she did. He made that up, and she called him out on it.
Exactly. That was just I love it.
That's why he kind of looked at her, like, kind of almost rolled his eyes, like, come on.
But they get encountered by a group on a horse, bandits. We didn't know what they were. And they asked why you were here. They had a dog sniff them to see if they had the cordyceps, which is interesting. That's a cool way, I guess, of like, if you don't have the tool, the animals have a sixth sense almost, I guess, of like, you're not who you are. And of course,
this is one of the five senses. They can smell. They can just smell the fungus. It would put off certain different
I guess that's
chemical
fair. Yeah.
aromas that a dog can detect. Yeah.
And also, let's not forget about the long history it took for men to actually be compatible with dogs. Like, so anything that's not a human, a dog would probably attack.
That's fair. And this is also called back to like first episode. There was the neighbor who had a dog, and the dog ran away. Because the dog realized that something was wrong. But of course, Joel was fine as the dog sniffed him. But like, we're thinking that this dog's going to tear apart, or I don't even know. To Ellie, and Joel just freezes, like he didn't do anything. Like
he has a panic attack.
Yeah. Another interesting
Not
thing.
to mention, what was he supposed to do? I think part of why he freezes or has a panic attack because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Start yelling, run, shoot. Like they're out. They're literally surrounded by 10 people with guns. They can't get away. If they make the wrong movement or say the wrong thing, it's like
there's no way they're outrunning them. They're all on horses.
Well, if this was a traditional, Western, unrealistic, he would have mowed them all down. So nah.
They pull out a pistol and one shot, one kill, 10 people before any of them can hit him one time or her. And I'm so glad they didn't do some nonsense like that.
But it was completely realistic. And, I would have been probably in the same boat. I'm like, oh shit, I bet. What do I do?
Like even made an attempt to negotiate a couple times. He's like, let's talk this out. And they're like, you shut the fuck up. And they're like, okay. Like, if he says the wrong thing, they might just shoot and kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think he's been on that side, right? Where he knows the willingness when you run into a stranger that you can't trust, just shoot him. What do they have to gain or lose, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they listen to the story. Then suddenly, what? They're rich. They get more food. What do they get from hearing this guy out? Yep. But what do they have to lose? He tries to rob them. He's infected. Gets them infected. Like the risk reward range is huge there. So he blames himself later on.
Yes.
For having frozen up or whatever. But I don't know what else he was supposed to do there.
Like I guess he could have been like, she's immune. She's bit, but she's immune. But again, that's why he doesn't want to tell people in the first place, because they're just going to shoot her anyways. They're like,
the second you say she's bit, no hesitation, dead.
Yeah.
Too many people billions of people have died at this point.
Immune.
Yeah.
Maybe he could say she's immune and not say she's bit. But what do you think the next question will be? What? How do you know?
Exactly.
Right? Like
have you guys watched?
I
was gonna say, have you guys watched the movie The King's Man?
Mm-mm.
No.
It's the third, but it's also a prequel movie to the movie Kingsman: The Golden Circle. It was a pretty good movie, but one moment, the character we've been following for most of the movie, comes back from like no man's land during World War One, and is bringing back vital information that the Germans sent to Mexico, saying, "Hey, Mexico, you need to invade America to keep them out of the war." And he's impersonating another officer because his father was trying to keep him in London by talking with the king. And he doesn't die to enemy fire, he dies to friendly fire because he had the message, and the message had the German insignia on it.
Yeah.
And so he thought he was a German, so the ally thought he was a German spy and shot him, no hesitation. Same thing as if somebody was infected. Too many people have died at this point. You don't question it. You hear infected, they die.
Yeah.
The second the word leaves the lips.
I mean, sure, yeah, it's a definitely. I mean, he obviously he did the best thing he could have done in that situation, just for
Yeah,
realistic, I guess. You know,
well, like maybe he thought he would just be the person he used to be and just kill them all, which maybe he could have done. But in the show, we haven't seen that. Those of us in the game, we know maybe he could have, maybe.
maybe.
But,
I still, yeah, like with that many people, like it just takes one person. Oh, I shoot that guy. I maybe shoot another guy. I'm dead. Like, oh, what was that, Sean?
Sorry. Maybe you even get 3 or 4 of them, but not all 8 of them.
No,
and
exactly.
not before they get him or Ellie.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's like
he has to. And maybe that's also part of his freezing up or his frustration. I was even thinking like there was a time where he would have like been willing to die and just gone out in a blaze of glory. But now he can't afford to do that because he has to protect her. He might, even at that cabin, there might have been a time where he just would have killed those 2 people and taken their food. But now, like this moral sense of goodness is back in him, you know, like he, maybe because he has hope of future humanity, maybe because he wants to set a good example for her, etc. But maybe that is part of him, like being afraid of failing, as he has these new parameters on his actions that he didn't have a year ago or whatever. You know.
Also, I forget that, you know, episode 1, Sarah, he was confronted by a soldier, and this is very similar in a lot of ways. It's obviously like Sarah, Ellie doesn't die here, but like, you know, he had a gun to him and he failed.
He rushed the guy, right? He made the attempt, and it, yeah.
Well, then in the same episode, he did that with Ellie, also. The soldier was pointing the gun at Ellie, and he's just like, "No, you die."
Both times it was one guy, though, right?
Yeah,
yes, that's true.
Literally surrounded.
Yes. So yeah, just interesting. And you can see why he froze up too, probably because in ways it's exactly what happened with him and Sarah, and you know, and if he hasn't really tried to deal with it, you know, now he's being forced to, you know, deal with that same situation. You know,
might have been replaying that in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I even had the thought of, I wonder why they didn't have that sort of flashback, because they did that in the first episode when he was with Ellie and that guard came out.
Yep.
He flashed back to when he was with Sarah and the guard came. But I wonder if it's simply because it might be too confusing to someone who isn't paying enough attention. Like, we're watching this twice per week and talking about it for 2 hours, and you guys are familiar with the game. But you got to imagine a lot of people out there aren't paying as much attention as us, and so they might not remember. It might be confusing, or some people might just be watching this episode for the first time without having seen the rest of it. Yeah. And that's got to be like part of the design of writing for a major series on a major network like this. Is you got to make sure someone watching this episode by itself isn't totally lost.
Yeah.
So a flashback like that might have been too confusing. But in my headcanon, he was flashing back to Sarah just like he did in that.
I think they did that on purpose, though, because I think they're trying to say that this isn't the same thing. When he flashed back to Sarah in the first episode, that was specifically PTSD. But here, this isn't PTSD. This is specifically a panic attack.
Okay.
Yeah, they're trying to say that it's something different. This is something new, and of course, adults that haven't had panic attacks before, they don't have to do that. I don't know if it was this series or another one that I saw recently, but they said, I wasn't afraid until you came along. Or like, I was never afraid before you came along. I don't know if that was this series or another one I've been watching
I
recently.
think that was Frank and Bill.
Yes, that was Frank and Bill.
Good callback.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Joel had never been afraid after Sarah died. The only thing he cared for was Tommy, and that was about it. And so
And
this
Tess,
is,
he surprisingly
Fair.
did like Tess or cared for her. I mean, the whole reason he's doing this is because of Tess. He's like,
That's
fine, I'll do this, even though I'm pissed off, or I don't think it's a good idea, whatever. But anyways,
but it makes me think of that scene, just like instead of Bill to Frank, it's now Joel to Ellie.
Yeah.
He is like, even in the cabin, like when she talked when he told her not to, it scared him for a second. Like, we don't know if they have any secret weapons. They could have shot you or shot me. Well, both of us were distracted or something.
Mhm.
And so like that whole situation was a little bit more tense than he was ready for. That was the first panic attack, and then they're surrounded and he's having another panic attack. Like, I have nothing. There's nothing I can do to stop the situation from escalating or getting worse.
Mhm.
I want to point out another minor tangent, but something else I wanted to point out that you brought up last week, the idea that they might travel on horse.
Yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
And that I was like, I was like a little suspicious of that, because it's hard to get on a horse, needs saddles, horses still need to be taken care of. So I appreciate that now that they have come upon horses, they have saddles, they have stables, they're being taken care of. They didn't just like randomly find them running around in woods, jump on one and start riding off. I feel like it is something that's managed and cared and trained and everything, not just randomly they found them and know how to ride without the saddle, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's fair. That's a good point.
This is
Well, honestly, they didn't show Ellie on the horse, or at least by herself. So maybe she was struggling with it, or she was riding with someone the first time.
For one quick moment.
Yeah.
He was giving her instructions to hold on to both reins, but I mean, it was literally like less than 5 seconds, just a quick moment when they were getting the gear together. She just got on the horse first. She had to be helped up and had to be given instruction, and I imagine there was more of that they didn't necessarily spend a bunch of screen time on, but yeah.
That's fair.
Although I'm pretty sure she knew how to ride a horse from her role in Game of Thrones, but
so yeah. So obviously this group is with the community that Tommy's from. The main actress who plays Maria, she was in True Blood, the vampire HBO series. And I've seen her.
What else is she in? I kept thinking I recognized her.
I know she was in Walking Dead, but you haven't seen that point, of the show where she was like briefly, she was like in an episode or two. Actually, yeah, I know she's been around. This actress.
She's been in a lot of things.
But
her IMDb is full, not full, but it has a lot of stuff on it.
So anyways, they get to the community, Joel and Tommy reunite. It was like, touching a little scene. And they catch up, and when they hug, you see Ellie's response, and she's like torn. She's like almost upset, like almost scared that he's going to leave her, potentially. But you have a scene with just Tommy and sorry, they eat together, like all four of them, Tommy, Maria, Ellie, and Joel. They're just chowing down on food because they haven't had food in forever. Well, good food. And Tommy reveals that he's married. Which, didn't you point that out, John? Didn't you like kind of predict this? I felt like you did this like on like the first or second episode, that you said that something is going to be holding Tommy at the place where he was at, like he's probably going to be married or something like that. I thought
he's developed a life beyond. He's not just out in the woods twiddling his thumbs. He's probably got something that I don't remember specifically if I said that he's married, but maybe that he has a love interest, or yeah, but something it's going to give him his own agenda that he can't just immediately abandon because Joel shows up, you know.
And I mean, I felt like you were right on that. I mean, I kind of remember. I was like, yeah, he's right. A good prediction. But yeah, you know, Tommy has a life, and you know, and has responsibilities. And he, you know, like obviously, like Maria's like a huge part of, you know, his life, and Joel has to realize this. You know, they have a scene together, Tommy and Joel, as they talk, they catch up, and he's like, "How's Tess?" And you know, Joel's like, she's fine," and you know, I need to get Ellie to the Fireflies. You know, he's like vague about it. You know, he's starting to realize that he can't basically what's the word? He has to be more vague with his brother right now, just because I don't know if trust is the right word for it, because he obviously trusts Tommy, but like he was holding back.
Yeah, I think so. One, trust is an interesting word because it's not just trust means a lot of things, and one is, you know, that someone won't lie to you, or maybe even won't betray you or something. But trust also, I don't know, say it's like, even if I trust someone to not lie to me or not betray me, I still might not trust them to be competent enough to do a certain job, for example. Does that make sense? Or I might not trust them to not make an accident. Someone might like just be a fast talker or a gossiper, right? And so even if I trust them to not do something dishonest, they might slip up and reveal some information that I didn't want them to. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of ways.
Yes.
Trust maybe in a vague way means you know how someone will behave, even if the way they behave is dishonest. Like I can trust that they're going to betray me, if that makes sense. You kind of know how it's going to go. And I think he's in a situation right now where he doesn't know how things are going to go. And so he doesn't necessarily think he doesn't necessarily think Tommy's going to lie or betray him, but he doesn't necessarily think he can trust Tommy to go along with his intentions or to hold his secret or whatever it is. Even if in general, he might trust Tommy, but Tommy has a wife and he might tell his wife. And then his wife might tell someone else. He doesn't know if he can trust the wife. There's a lot of unknowns right now. People there don't necessarily trust him. And that's another thing that kind of is unveiled, is that Tommy has things that he's guilty or ashamed of, and he doesn't know if other people there know that about him. And in fact, they probably do. He probably suspects Tommy probably has told his wife about his past, which includes Joel.
Yep.
So she probably knows bad things that Joel has done. And again, that probably means at least some other people in his community have at least some idea about it too. It's like, you know what I mean? So it would be hard for Tommy to become this ingrained in his community without ever having talked about his past or his brother or the bad things he's done.
Exactly.
Now the brother shows up and he might understand. And another thing that was happening in here was when the Maria, Tommy's wife, was left alone with Ellie for a minute, and they had a conversation. Maria tells Ellie, you can only be betrayed by someone you trust. It was something along that line. And it cut from that to Joel and Tommy talking. And I was like, oh man, are they setting Tommy up to betray Joel? Joel even says, you're the only one I can trust. Like, oh man, I thought for sure. It didn't quite pan out yet. I guess maybe something could still happen in this episode. But I thought that's where they were going with it. They didn't quite seem to. But the point is that there's definitely trust issues going on here.
Yes.
I don't blame him. It's the apocalypse. Like, shit sucks.
Yes. Now, another thing that was revealed was Tommy is having a kid, you know, and how Joel responded made Tommy upset. You know, Tommy was expecting Joel just to be happy for him, you know, and Joel wasn't. You know, we'll see how it plays out or something like that, how he says it, you know, very cold and, you know, like, you know, it's not basically, he's very just, I feel like he doesn't like to get close to people, and he feels like if you get close to people, they'll disappoint you, basically die, you know. And he's maybe in some ways not dealing with his issue with Sarah. Another way he's not dealing with, the hope that there's hope in the world, and bringing a life in as, moving forward and having hope. And obviously, they have an argument, and Joel storms out. I was like, I'll just deal with this myself. My situation. You deal with your situation.
In fairness, Joel did not handle that situation very well.
Oh, he did it not. No. I mean, it's kind of like, how Henry was like, what's that supposed to mean? Like, his tone is like just so.
Mm-hmm.
He has rude. Asshole voice.
Yeah, I love that.
And I appreciate that little bit of consistency there. That he's. It seemed like there was some sort of falling out with Tommy in the first place that they didn't totally get into, but that's underlying. And Joel, we see him consistently be abrasive with people, and but even if he was good at dealing with people at some point in his past, which maybe is questionable in the first place, he definitely didn't get better at it in the middle of the apocalypse, when he's isolated from people, when he can't trust people, when he's lost people he cares about, on and on and on. You could see why he might be grumpy or lacking in social manners or whatever.
Yes.
Well, actually, I feel like this conversation broke into that a little bit. So, what is the thing that really set Tommy off? It was when Joel said, "Well, we'll wait and see, won't we?" Which could be seen as a joke, and a lot of people, if you look past the asshole voice, like, you can see that as being kind of a lighthearted jab. But that's the moment that really kind of breaks the camel's back for Tommy, and he kind of loses it. So is it possible that he broke and told Tommy, "Can you stop dragging me behind?" Or stop, like, "Why do I have to carry you?" Or something like that. Is it possible that that's something that could have happened between them, where Joel just made him feel very inferior, that he was not worth the time or something?
And Joel's doing it again here.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That is a good point, because past conversations or conflicts, are seen a different way in the future. It trigger points, like you said. So that is interesting.
So generally, they get along well and respect each other and love each other and trust each other. But still, you can imagine the more time you spend with someone, a little thing you do, it might not matter or might not come up if you only spend an hour a week together. But if you spend 8 hours a day together for weeks and weeks, eventually some little thing you do comes up often and starts to irk you.
Yep.
And he explodes. And if Joel is constantly, I don't know what the word, maybe not even constantly, but periodically, passively belittling Tommy.
Yeah.
Pointing out his flaws, or, scoffing at his because that was even another thing too. Joel seemed to Tommy, he's naive. He doesn't know how the world really works. Not like me. I know how things, Joel has maybe a sort of arrogance about him that rubbed Tommy the wrong way. Even if Joel at some level is right, maybe he is smarter, or Tommy is naive, it's still frustrating for Tommy to hear. And now when it comes to he has staked out on his own, got married, has a kid on the way, what else do I have to do to prove myself to you? You're challenging my ability to be a dad now?
Well, actually,
man, give me a break.
Yeah.
One of the first things Joel says to Tommy even backs that up. But what is the first thing that he says to Tommy? "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to save you."
Oh, yeah.
That's literally the first thing he says to Tommy.
Say that as a joke, but I think he has to, because he kind of recognizes that is the relationship that they have. Yeah.
Even in the car ride.
Tommy clearly didn't need saving, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not at all.
Exactly.
There,
even on the car ride to Tommy, he points out how he's always cleaning up almost, or protecting Tommy. Maybe Tommy just doesn't want protecting,
Tommy wants to be his own man.
Exactly. So
he's at least 40 years old now. He wants to be his own man.
I actually think they're 50, because I think, if I'm correct, Joel's 58. I could be wrong on that.
56.
That's it. I knew it was in the 50s. He
turns 26 in episode 1.
I don't know this 100%, but I think that Tommy may be 5, at max 10 years difference. But I feel like it's more in the 5-6 range. So he's probably up on the upper 40s or lower 50s.
dude, I'm half a century old. Let me be my own man.
So,
but again, he's like, you look good for 50.
Yes, they did point that out. So that's why I was like, I wonder how old he actually is, and I started thinking about that. Anyways, yes.
One commenter I was actually watching actually commented saying, "Man, that town must be doing really well off because that looks freshly dyed." I'm like, actually, yeah, that's actually really good storytelling right there, just by how he looks, because he looks like he's been pampered, and that's what the town really
that's a good
is.
point. Yeah. Well, Joel, he's been like struggling. It feels like, doing dirty work, and it's
Struggle
on
is
him.
a good word.
So
it's worth noting too, by the way, even a 5-year difference is really huge when you're thinking, like, if their ages now are 48 and 53, it's almost nothing, right? But when they were 13 and 18, 17 and 22, even 23 and 28 is a big difference, a relative difference in life experience for those two to have had. So, I can see how for a lot of their life, Joel would have been or seemed like or acted like he was much more experienced or better or whatever than his younger brother. But at this point, it seems like he should be past that, and maybe he's not, and maybe that really irks Tommy. So
yes.
And we could also take a look at their first scenes that we kind of see them after the apocalypse. What is the first scene we see Joel in? He is walking around, he's doing dirty work that just sucks, and then he's in his room worrying about Tommy drinking pills and drinking alcohol, or taking pills and drinking alcohol. What do we see Tommy doing? He's working in a community, building something, doing something positive.
Yeah.
And doing that is a lot better for your health than worrying about someone. So of course Joel's going to look like decades older because he's doing all this worrying for no good reason.
Mm-hmm. After Joel, leaves Tommy, he has another panic attack, and he thinks he sees his daughter Sarah, and it happens to be someone who looks like Sarah who has a daughter. But like in reality, if she had lived, she probably would have had kids. She probably would have been around, that age, or something like that. So
she would have been older than Joel was at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that in itself is like obviously I don't know how losing somebody like that would feel, but that would be haunting, honestly.
It sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks a lot.
So, then we get a scene with Ellie, and she took a shower, and she's basically Maria. I think no, she's not. She's in her own place, and then she goes to Maria's place. But as she's like looking around, she sees a board that has like two names, Kevin and Sarah. This went over my head. I don't know how it went over my head when I was watching this the first time, but I was like, oh, two people who have died, and it shows like their dates, but obviously, Maria had a son, Kevin, and Joel's daughter was Sarah, and they made a memorial, Maria and Tommy. But this is the first time that Ellie realized that Joel had a kid, and obviously it needed to be told. I can't remember. Does she in the game? Does that happen the same way? Does Maria tell
yes.
Ellie? Okay, I was pretty sure it was. I can't remember 100%.
It happens off screen.
That's right. Okay, that's what it is.
Like
follow,
there's the attack at the hydro plant. There's the attack at the hydroelectric dam, and you go save them, and then while you had been talking with Tommy, it was revealed that she had been talking with
Maria. Okay. That's what I thought. But yeah, obviously she's getting like a haircut and all that. They have some like fun little dialogue. But overall, the point of it was Ellie realizes that Joel had a kid, and it makes she's like, it makes sense. I mean, of course, how did I not know this? Thoughts? But yeah, I figured it's pretty straightforward.
Well, pretty straightforward. But can I also just say, I love how they transition people in this. Starting with Frank to Bill to Ellie. Every time somebody takes a shower, they're like shedding their rough exterior, which I know that's what a shower is, but like Bill and Frank, they're both very kind of coarse against each other at very first. Mostly Bill, but like Frank takes a shower, then all of a sudden he's just like, "Oh my gosh, the food is so good, the wine, oh, and music." And then he convinces Bill to sit down and he's like, "Go take a shower," and then they start having a life together and they start enjoying each other's company.
Yeah.
Same thing with Ellie. Ellie is super gruff. She's cursing a lot in front of Maria and Tommy, and she's being very rude. But then she takes a shower, and all of a sudden she's kind of opening up and being friendly.
That's fair.
I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a cool little thing that they were doing there.
That is cool. That's neat. I like that perspective.
That's why I need to take a shower every morning.
True.
If I took a shower, my tail would not smell anymore.
Then you should take a shower.
It's too much work.
Is that what that smell has been?
So it's neat. They do this in Walking Dead too, but like, you know, in a community, you have to like basically take care of your community. You have to have things that people enjoy and all that, which they will have theaters, you know, or try to have a theater. So I do like how they like have a place for people to watch stuff, to basically have a life, even though the world has went to shit. You know, you can still have a good life and then, you know, and do entertaining things. So overall, I appreciate, you know, that they have movie watching night or whatever, you know, with this community and other things, you know.
But I also appreciate something that she says both from this scene that we get to see her do, and something she says in a later scene. Is this really all they had to worry about was what skirt to wear with what shirt and stuff like that? Like,
yes. Yeah.
She's in the theater, she's watching this, and she's looking around, everyone like being so enthralled with it, and she's like, I don't get it.
Yeah, because she's...
And I get that. Like, why would she?
Yeah. Like, yeah, obviously, if like you lived an adventurous life, movies may not be fun exactly. They're just like, there are bigger things that you should be worrying about, almost like going through your head, at least, you know, whether you're safe or not, you know, like if you've been trying to survive for, I mean, this has been like 3-4 months with them, you know, and it's just not that, like her whole life hasn't been probably that great, you know, like it's been hard, I should say, you know. So
if you've been deployed, you don't want to watch a movie about war. You've been there.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. I don't want to go back.
Or, you know, just like the fact of like relationships too. Like if you're watching like a romance movie, you're like, I mean, I guess, you know, you may be turned off just because you're so like always on guard. You're always aware, and, you know, like just escaping from reality, you know, may just not be your thing. You know, I don't know. I go on that, but anyways,
your dog just died. You don't want to watch Marley and Me, her old Yeller.
Thoughts, Sean?
By the way, that movie was The Goodbye Girl. I haven't seen it, but I just recognize Richard Dreyfuss and the characters' names were Elliot and Lucy, and it was like a huge romantic comedy in, I don't know, 1980 or something.
Okay.
I vaguely know it's about like an actor and a dancer and their relationship with each other. I don't know the details. Like I said, I haven't seen it, but I wonder if I feel like they chose that movie for a reason. I
there
feel
is
like
a parallel.
They gave us enough to identify what it was.
Yeah.
And the name of it being The Goodbye Girl, maybe that by itself is meaningful.
Oh God, I haven't watched that movie in a decade. Hold on, let me.
Someone did mention it.
I have watched that movie before.
There is a parallel. I don't remember what it was. But of course, you know, Ellie.
Was it ever in the game or anything?
No.
No.
Actually, just to let you know, this community wasn't built in the game yet.
They were still or no, it wasn't built in the game yet. We never saw it. We were only at the hydroelectric dam.
I feel like we were just at the dam the whole time. Not the village.
We never actually got to go to the village.
Maybe you had an idea it existed, but you didn't know how developed it was.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to see this. I guess you could say, the village that they talked about.
Okay, so Goodbye Girl. The main cast is a dancer and her 10-year-old daughter who have to live with an older, struggling actor.
Okay.
So
let's see the parallels potentially.
The only difference would be that the unemployed dancer is not a thing in The Last of Us. I guess you could say she's maybe like Tess or something, but like a lot of the story does revolve around Richard Dreyfuss as the unemployed dancer and the 10-year-old girl, because them getting along is just as important as the dancer and the guy doing getting along as well.
That's fair. So Tom, you see Tommy in the background talking to Maria, and then he leaves. And Ellie decides to also leave. But we have, I think, one of the best scenes. I mean, this scene was awesome with Tommy and Joel, and I feel like they had something like this, but I don't. In the game, I meant it definitely wasn't like this in the game.
No, he did not open up anywhere near as much in the game, and
exactly.
I love this so much.
Yeah, that's Joel's like trying to fix his shoe because his shoe is completely messed up, and Tommy comes in and he's like, "Here's new boots," and then they just have like this honest conversation. How Joel just you see how much of a burden, not kind of a burden, like how much this has been weighing on him trying to keep Ellie alive, and he's like, I'm old, I don't think she'll live with me, like she'll survive, I should say, with me. And it was just powerful. Like it was just sad, again, going back to like Joel's not this like hotshot badass, I mean he is, but like he's a real person who has trouble trying to keep someone alive if he's just like he's not in his
he's less of a hotshot badass than he used to be.
Exactly. And
he used to be Steve McQueen. Now he's barely a Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, he talks about like how like Ellie had to shoot somebody to save him, because he couldn't hear. He was just too slow, which was referring to obviously the scene where Joel eventually stabbed the kid. Like Ellie technically didn't kill the kid, but like
she had to shoot him.
But she had to shoot him because he would have just died. Because he's just not at his prime. And yeah, it was just a touching scene. He pretty much just pleads with Tommy. He's like, Tommy. I like also how he was like, how far is this university? Because they think that the Fireflies are at this university. And Tommy's like, it's really not that bad. Basically it's not that dangerous. And, Joel's like, okay, then you could do it. Like, I know you have a kid and all that, but like, if it's not that dangerous, I know you could get her there safely and you could get back here fine. And he pretty much just pleads that, can you do this for me? Because I don't think I'm going to keep her alive.
I need this done, but I can't do it.
Yeah. Thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, it was a very powerful, emotional, dramatic scene. It was way more meaningful and moving than any zombie attack we've had so far. Another thought I had, just in the context of everything else we've been saying, the way Tommy brought Joel those new boots, I wonder if that's like a role reversal of how Joel has always taken care of Tommy.
Yeah.
Here comes Tommy taking care of Joel.
Yep.
And Joel is maybe in this moment realizing, accepting that, and asking him, look, if you're going to take care of me, this is what I really need, more so than the boots. You got to take care of this girl for me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
He believes that he can't do it,
Horn, anything else before we get to the Ellie scene?
I really liked this scene because it really showed how family are some of the only people you can truly be open with. He wasn't this open with Tess. He wasn't this open with anyone else. I don't even think he was that open with Sarah. But with Tommy, he was willing to be this open.
Yeah. Also, this is also important to note too. Tommy is the only other person I think now that knows, other than Marlene, of course, but that knows that Ellie is immune.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
what we know of. I'm assuming there's other people that know. I'm assuming there's at least one other person who knows, if not 5 or something.
well, I was gonna say Marlene, and of course she's like supposed to be having the staff that is supposed to find the cure with Ellie. So of course they know, but like other than that, like it's not like no one at Boston, to my knowledge, knows that Ellie's immune. The place where she was originally from. So there's only a handful of people who know this. I guess I should point out, and Tommy happens to be one of them. Also, will Tommy tell Maria? Or will he keep it secret? Just something to be mindful of, or keep in the back of your mind.
I think it's at least possible that someone in Boston knows. I think they set it up so that it could go either way.
I guess that's fair. That's a good point.
I think it would be hard for Marlene, with all those people around and with the weird behavior that's going on, for no one there to know. Because remember, people were questioning her, like, why are we keeping this girl? And they were like testing her, all this stuff. Like, she might have been able to keep this secret despite all the unusual behavior. And even someone there that did know might have got killed, because there was some sort of firefight, and it seemed like almost everyone there got killed.
Yeah, also, we don't know how many of them are alive.
Right. But like, Marlene wasn't dead, right?
She wasn't
shot, but her and that other guy were still alive.
Oh, that the girl,
clear
yes.
If that other guy knew. Marlene might tell her if she is dying. She might be like, look, I have to tell you something, because you need to make XYZ plans if I die, Yeah. And somehow Marlene found out. Did Marlene just randomly go experimenting on every little girl until she found one, or did she have communication with some of the scientists? We don't know where Ellie's parents are, or what happened to them, or what school she was in, why she left it. There's a lot of things we don't know. I think it would be, I don't know what happens in a game, and I don't know what they need or what they plan on doing, but it would be really, really easy for there to be at least a couple people that know that someone that knew her parents, someone that worked at her school, someone that worked with Marlene, some contact that if it seems like they're going to Utah. I haven't got this yet, but there's like a map with these pins on a map, and it seems like they've abandoned a station. It seems like they're going to Utah, and it seems like other entities are also going to Utah. And so I'm guessing at least someone in Utah is going to be aware, whether or not they expect Ellie to show up, or whether or not they tell everyone.
That's
I
fair.
don't know, but I'm making a prediction before the end of this. Someone else, when they meet Ellie, is going to be like, oh, "You're the one," and they're going to know.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Let's see. So they have this, conversation. And he convinces Tommy to go, to do this, and Tommy agrees. And then Joel goes and confronts Ellie. And this may be potentially the biggest scene in the game. Now the biggest difference is Ellie runs away, from the dam area, and you have to you run across bandits, and bandits come and attack you, and eventually you get to this cabin. So it's a lot of basically nonsense, fun game stuff. Actually, I remember in the game too, I was like, this seems out of place, these bandit attacks. But anyway,
and even Joel's like, "What's wrong with you?" And she's like, "Well, you're just gonna abandon me anyways."
Yeah, but they get to this cabin scene, and which they it's in the community now in this show. And they have pretty much line from line almost.
Not just line for line, shot for shot. Like, literally, the second he touches that doorknob, it could have just been ripped straight from the... would have been there.
Yeah. Supposedly the act, Bella and Pedro knew of the scene, and they were almost intimidated by the scene because they knew the scene had to be perfect, because people were going to analyze the scene, probably know whether it was good or bad. I thought they delivered, fine. But that's interesting, like from an actor's point of view, like going into a scene that is a bigger deal. It's kind of like Pedro playing Oberon Martell, like that was a bigger deal, to have that cast right, Anyways, But yeah, Ellie, is reading a journal of somebody. She's like, this is just seems so pointless that people, get so upset over stuff like this. Contrasting to her, her reality versus other people's. And Joel's like, I'm gonna. Well, he found out that she eavesdropped, and he's like, it's just, you would be safer with Tommy. And her big thing is she's afraid that everyone, her biggest scare is everyone's going to abandon her, or they're going to die, or they're going to leave her. And everyone has, other than Joel. She's pretty much gotten attached and cares for Joel, and now he's abandoning her, and she's just pissed. And they end off, where he's like, "You're just going to go with Tommy. I'm sorry, you're not my daughter."
Which, except for those that have played the game, I think might have been a huge subversion for a lot of people that also were really expecting him to just be like, to turn right then and say, "No, I will take you. You are important to me." I don't know how Sean felt about that.
I am curious about the scene. What are your thoughts about the scene?
I said out loud, "Let him sleep on it." He's gonna wake up in the morning and change his mind. I thought it was a chance that like Tommy and Ellie actually went off together, got caught by bad guys, and Joel rode in to save the day. But there's no way he was just gonna like let this girl and his brother go off into danger or not take part in it. So
that's fair.
That's fair.
I just feel like some other people who have watched so many like shows at this point, like that all have this positive message and stuff, they're all going to expect him to be like that. And then him just saying, "No, you're not my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad, and we're separating in the morning," I feel would shatter a lot of people. Be like, "What?"
Now,
that's also kind of where I wish the episode had just ended. I feel like that would have been a really powerful moment, because then not just would the audience have to sit on that, but we'd let Joel sit on that, and we'd feel the time of passing of that decision.
Right.
Now, and then we could start the next episode with him pretty much immediately flipping, but it doesn't feel like he's immediately flipping because we've given a whole week to that.
Now, I remember when I played the game, I was actually getting worried about the game direction, and I was like, "Oh no, they're gonna," because that in the game, there's no way you're gonna play Tommy. Like it just, they've been focusing on Joel and Ellie, but I'm like, but this decision, they're forcing. It feels like, Tommy will take over. So I was like, they're killing Tommy off. I'm going to be pissed off about this decision because it's not going to be his choice. It's not going to be Joel's choice to continue to be with Ellie. He's going to be forced again. I thought that's what they were going to do in the game, and they didn't. Obviously, it was his choice. So I was very happy about that. And I remember also somebody I was playing with said the same thing. They're like, "Oh God, they're going to do this stupid trope," but they didn't. It was one of the parts that I was very happy with in the game. But yeah, obviously he sits on it, and they go and Joel he gives her a choice. He's like, "You could be with me or you could be with Tommy. I'll at least give you that." And she immediately
scares the words come out of his mouth. She shoves the bag in him and like, "We're going."
Yeah, love that. And so now this had some of the coolest cinematography stuff. The journey, like they showed like a shot in the back of like the horse, traveling, and there's like the sunset. That's freaking awesome, that shot. I feel like it may even be Western feel, or maybe a trope to Western things, but whatever. The shot was freaking awesome. They showed a sideways shot of the landscape and the sunset also, but he shows her how to use the rifle.
There were 3 shots in a row where the image on screen, I was like, "Wow, that's a really good shot." And
exactly.
It cut, and I was like, "Wow, that's a really good shot." And it cut, like, "Wow, that's another really good shot." I was like, paused it just because it was so good, it was so impactful, and I just wanted to sit on it for a minute. And I feel like I was talking over it while I was watching it with Rita, so I didn't want to be interrupting so much. But I really literally stopped it to just take that in. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
but also this trip scares me a little in terms of what's going to happen in the future. Because remember, Tommy said that you will meet some stuff along the way, and it'll be a tough journey, and it'll take about a week. And they did it in 5 days, which means they didn't meet any of the resistance that they were talking about. Which I'm like, so then what are they going to? Because remember, they also we also had a little bit of a foreshadow from this in the Henry episode. We're like, oh yeah, all the infected, they're just gone.
Yeah.
And what happened there? They were all underground.
And all the Fireflies had abandoned that spot too. Why did they abandon it? What's going on? Yeah.
Now in the game, you know, that you spend a little bit more time, obviously, in the university. Like there are infected. Like when they went up to the top, I can't remember if the monkeys were there. By the way,
no, the monkeys were there.
Yeah, I was gonna say the monkeys were there. I do know that, but there were infected up on top in the game. They're infected all over
just
the place.
Around.
Yeah, I was just say that.
They're none on top.
So they didn't do that, and I completely understand because they're just trying to get to the point of them figuring out where the Fireflies are. They don't want to spend a whole pack of action. Sequences are scary. On this university. So I understand why they didn't. Why they chose what they did.
It's not too late. Like that, maybe they go back to the university. He's
they
wounded.
Could. No,
they need shelter. I don't know for sure what to expect here, but it doesn't seem like he can get back on a horse and ride for 5 days. And I don't expect him to just die bleeding out from a stab next to these railroad tracks. So maybe it's going to be similar to what I was thinking, where Tommy's going to show up. Tommy's going to not be comfortable having let them go off.
Now.
Or maybe those bandits will come back, or maybe they'll maybe someone is left behind from the Fireflies. Maybe one last person, in case Joel shows up with Ellie, is supposed to be waiting. Maybe that's a possibility.
Now this is the part where I said I had words. This is the one and only time I think the show paled vastly in comparison to how the game handled it. For the scene where Joel gets stabbed.
Obviously, Joel does get stabbed in the game.
So what happened? So the thing about what happens in the game is it's very believable that his stab wound would not be fatal, because instead of getting stabbed by a broken shard of bat, which very easily could puncture organs and cause a lot of massive internal damage, which also pulling out is also equally as bad. He gets stabbed by a piece of rhubarb. He gets surprise attack from the side by one of the people that are patrolling the university, and they fall off a 2nd-story balcony, and he falls onto some rhubarb, and it pierces through his stomach. Now, rhubarb is not sharp, and it will move everything out of the way. So a stab from rhubarb is a lot more relatable of being a survivable stab than, like I said, a piece of wood.
I was actually shocked by this one.
Anything, if it's sharp enough to puncture your skin, I don't know, it can still puncture something inside your skin. And just falling from a 2-story building, even if you're not stabbed, you still, broken ribs can puncture your lungs, can still smash your liver and give you internal bleed. I don't know. On one hand, I believe that this is a very survivable injury if you get medical attention.
Yeah.
I think it's survivable if you don't get medical attention or immediate medical attention, but I don't think you can ride a horse with this kind of wound, and I think you will be incapacitated for a while. Rhubarb or bat or knife or whatever it is that stabs you, like, you've lost blood, and you're also just out in the cold. You know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe you're a little safer from getting an infection.
I was thinking that, the cold. Safer. You're probably safer from blood loss because your blood flow is slowed because you're cold.
Exactly. I did account for that. Yeah, that being in winter or being near snow or whatever has that effect on the body. It's better than if you're out in the hot, like on desert, you'd probably just bleed really fast out or something like that, I guess.
So far, they've handled wounds relatively realistically. Like, I appreciate the fact that Tess twisted her ankle and they showed her limping and wincing on the ladder. The bruises on her face were still there days later after she, got in the scuffle in town.
Joel's hand when he punched that guy, he had issues with his hand for a while.
Yeah,
But
and
so
it still was like bloody knuckles or whatever. So it's very typical for shows and movies to not handle injuries well at all. So far, this show has been doing decently. So I want to have a little faith in how they're going to handle it. But it's hard for me to think of how that's going to be unless Tommy shows up or some Firefly that was left behind waiting for him shows
Or
up.
like you said, the bandits
kind
or
of what I
whatever.
expect.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the game, so the scene from him being stabbed to him getting out of there, Ellie, the NPC in the game, is now escorting Joel, trying to just get him out. And you get to see how competent she's become over this journey. She's learned how to protect herself. She's learned how to like do some minor bandaging. She's learned some stuff, and that's what I was like. This is really good. You get to see her growth over this whole game in this moment. But in the show, it's just look down. Oh, I got stabbed, which I hate that. I hate that trope. I hate the trope of looking down to see. Oh, I'm impaled. I hate that so much.
Now, to be fair, when I watched the scene, because I didn't catch when it happened, when he swung and broke the bat, Joel grabbed him and he punctured him right there. It wasn't even on purpose. I don't think the guy intentionally did it. Joel, in the scuffle, it actually happened.
Well, yeah, but like at the same time, I hate the trope of looking down to be stabbed. Like, no, you know you've been stabbed.
Not necessarily. Not if you go into shock.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you go into shock, because he may have been in shock at that point, I feel.
Well, then how was he able to get back up on the horse?
I guess that's fair.
Like, if you're in shock, you're not going to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to pull it out, then I'm going to get up on the horse, and we're going to get out of
Pulling
here.
it out was the dumbest thing, but
I did.
Absolutely.
I will tell you, one time I did smash my head hard enough to bleed and didn't realize it. Like, I knew I'd hit my head, but I was just like, ouch, and just kept going. And so in like 15 minutes later, it was like, whoa, what happened to you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know? And then I like put my hand to my eye, lowered it to see blood on my hand, and like suddenly realized, you know, so it's not that I didn't know I hadn't been hit, but I didn't know how bad it was. So
that is true. And he could have done the
it's a little more
same.
believable to me than you might think, but I do think it is a little bit of an overused trope. And I another example of maybe I wish I could go see the scene again, because it's hard to tell quite how far that stabbed into him. Because, I mean, there are certain things, like it stabs your liver, you're going to die really quick. Like, if you don't even if you got immediate modern medical attention, you still are likely to die if you get stabbed in the liver. But that was nowhere near his liver. But if you got what it is near is his intestines. And if it stabs into your intestines, the biomatter, his poop is in your intestines.
Yeah,
is what's in there.
Yeah,
that'll get into your blood. And it'll poison you, and you'll slowly, easily could die without blood transfusions and probably surgery, something to patch up the intestines. And it's the type of thing that like Ellie cannot do with him laying on the ground. It's going to take a surgeon. Now maybe randomly it didn't puncture. Maybe it just stabbed through, his abdominal muscles and.
Which hurts.
That, though, there's still like a lining over your abdominal. That's what a hernia is when the abdominal muscles pierce through, come through the lining over the top, which a stab would, I don't know. It's a
gut wounds.
We'll see. There's a few things about this that I can buy it, and I can buy him living through this, but we're gonna need. He's gonna need some medical attention for me to keep my suspension of disbelief for too long. But
also, I do like that he's encountered, in general, the show, the heroes have encountered very little situations that are dangerous, and every time they encounter something dangerous, someone either gets bit, died, or gets injured. No, which I at least.
And the only reason it hasn't been the main two is because it's been up until now. Has been because they've been adding party members and letting them take the blow.
Yeah. But overall, I can at least respect that, because it's hard to get out of a situation without someone getting hurt, at least, in reality,
another little factor when you're describing the difference in the game and the show horn is that the show, not saying this is better or worse, and I didn't have expectations from the game, but it's almost the opposite. It's because we see several times Joel holding back from Ellie, not teaching her things. She has to like beg and plead to finally be allowed to hold a gun, and when she is, he shows her how to use it or whatever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even want her to do guard duty, So the idea of her like competently taking care of him maybe isn't in line with what the show's produced so far. And maybe that's in line with his character as far as what we're talking about with Tommy, that he doesn't treat Tommy with the respect that he could or should. He doesn't share his knowledge with other people. Even if he's trying to be a good person and trying to be a helpful person, he isn't always the most helpful, the most sharing or whatever. And that maybe sometimes that pulls people around him back from their full potentials, which might be upsetting to Tommy, is clearly upsetting to Ellie, and might be to his detriment here. If he had showed her more about first aid or something along the way, she might be able to better help him. Because remember what she says to him here is like, I can't do this without you. I don't know how to help you. She feels desperate. She's not like taking charge and fixing things. She's floundering. And maybe that's not completely fair to totally blame on Joel. Maybe she'll pull herself together. Maybe she learned something in school. In fact,
just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Just
Well,
I almost feel like there was a reference to her knowing something about first aid earlier on. So yeah, and you don't have to be a doctor to understand like apply pressure, stop the bleeding. But that like stops him from bleeding out in 15 minutes laying on the ground. It doesn't stop his organs from being pierced. It doesn't stop. It doesn't repair the stomach lining or anything else. So.
And another thing that I just realized too was, so Joel didn't want to. He wanted Tommy to be, going with her. And if Tommy had went with her, maybe things would have been different. But one of the issues is, Joel has problems hearing people. He couldn't hear the guy with a bat. He may have heard him if he was paying attention, or if he was like aware, like he was his hearing was fine. But she had to call that guy out. He could have just been smacked in the head and died right there. So to a degree, I'm curious on like how Ellie's going to deal with this, because Ellie was the one who made Joel come along, and if he dies or is hurt or whatever, how is that going to affect her?
Is she going to feel responsible?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I guess so. Predictions. Obviously, you say that Joel's going to live, or you think he's going to live. I mean, it feels like
he's going to leave at least till the next episode. I wouldn't be surprised if he dies by the end of the series. I guess I would be a little bit surprised. But, but yeah, I think he's like 90% to live to the end of the season at least. I kind of expect someone is going to show up to help. Most likely Tommy or a Firefly that was left behind.
You said also the bandits potentially, right?
Yeah, I'm giving some chance to the bandits. But it seems like they're not going to be super likely to help when one of their friends just got killed.
That's fair.
Now maybe they won't, huh?
I said that's fair.
True. Yeah, maybe they won't necessarily show up to help, right? Maybe they'll just catch up to them and want to take their horse. I don't know, maybe those quote-unquote bandits aren't really bandits. Maybe they're Fireflies, and they thought Joel and Ellie were bandits. There could be a miscommunication.
True.
Like somewhere in a scuffle, someone should have yelled something out like, hey, are you the ones? Like, hey, we're just trying to find. I guess, what are you supposed to say? What are they? I don't know what they. When I think about that, I'm not sure what they should have said. But, I guess there is some possibility that those bandits were Fireflies. Bandits is kind of a generic term we've been using. The show's been using.
To be fair, that's the generic term the game had been using.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it would be interesting to see things from the perspective of quote unquote bandits. We sort of saw that in Kansas City, but that was a bigger organization. They weren't exactly bandits. But when they first came into town and one guy pretended to be hurt and Joel realized it was a trap, those guys seem to be part of a bigger organization, not just a team of 3 bandits out there scraping by.
Right.
But and we sort of did, but there's a parallel to draw between them and bandits, and we sort of did see things from their side. That kid's like, hey, my mom's right nearby. Please don't kill me. Like, we didn't exactly get their whole backstory, but we did see that it was, I don't know, they're a person. They weren't just a nameless bad guy.
Right.
So I would appreciate seeing that from quote unquote bandits. It would be an interesting 2-for-1 if those bandits were leftover Fireflies, although it seems like they would have held out some warning before they got into hand-to-hand combat and someone got
swung
killed.
This is somebody, No, that's fair.
Who has time for that?
Way, but I could see it, but...
Who has time for that? Yelling out people's names. Bah, humbug.
So, yeah, okay.
That's another thing too, is that they might be followed. Say that they do get out of there. Say Joel recovers, she stops the bleeding, they've got some first aid equipment. They find, I feel like it's not realistic with a gut wound to be riding a horse, but it happens so often that and maybe they have no other choice. Like maybe riding the horse with a gut wound for 4 days or 5 days isn't as bad as walking for 20 days. I'm not sure, but anyway, I'm just wondering if they were able to make their way back to Tommy's camp. The bandits would follow them there, and then Tommy's camp is revealed and then in trouble. I don't know if that... It seems like that's too much of a storyline. There's only 3 episodes left. It seems like that's too much to deal with.
That's fair.
I feel like they would go back to Tommy's before they go straight to Utah, especially because they don't quite know where they're going to Utah. They don't. I guess they can get there quicker on horse, and they have and can carry more equipment than they could before. But they just have to deal with Joel being wounded, so.
Yeah. Also,
we'll see. Maybe they'll just downplay how bad the wound is, and Joel will tough it out, and he'll move slower from now on, and that'll be part of his character and part of the story.
Yeah. Also, Ellie. It's not like Ellie could pick Joel up. Joel's a man, and he's like kind of big. Like she's just a kid. So like, how is he gonna Is he gonna wake him up? He's gonna be like, oh yeah, sorry, and jump on the horse. Like that seems unlikely. Like this the reality of it. Like using. So yeah, I'm curious on what you're curious about too, personally, but on how they're going to resolve this.
But I will say they've earned my trust. So I'm suspicious of how they're going to handle it, but I trust them to do a good job since they have so far. But I'll be here next week to call them out if they don't.
Fair enough.
That is fair. Are we wanting to do any other predictions, Horn, after Sean leaves?
No, we were able to get most of what I want to talk about.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything else?
The only thing I had to say was I'm glad that my pacing prediction during episode 1 has been pretty much 100% accurate.
Yeah, and I agreed with that. Like, it made a lot of sense. So
I think the university was the only segment I was like, well, if it's only 9 episodes, where is it going to be? But
I was actually worried that they were maybe not going to even do it because it's like so it's overall irrelevant. But then you pointed out he has to get, there's that
he has
injury.
to get injured. That is
so I was
very
like,
important.
never mind. That's a pretty big one. I just forgot it was right there. All right, but anyways,
wait, there was in Colorado. Am I muted?
Oh, no, go. You said Colorado?
But they were in Colorado. That's where that university was, which I want to point out because that's where I am. So I think it was actually filmed in Canada or something, but that's where they are, is Colorado.
That is cool. I'm trying to think of. So, how far is from there to Utah?
It depends on where in Utah. It's similar to Wyoming. Colorado. So Kansas City and Colorado, or Kansas City, Kansas and Colorado are adjacent. They're both right next to each other, north of Texas. Okay. Now, Kansas City is on the far side of Kansas in Missouri. It's like on the border of Missouri and Kansas. Then Colorado. Then Wyoming is to the north of Colorado, and Utah is to the west of Colorado. So they must have gone down from Wyoming to Colorado. Now they could go back up to Wyoming or back across to Utah. But I'm telling you, those states are huge. The time it takes to get, depending on where you are in a state and where you're going into the other one, is, it could be 1 mile, but it could be all the way. It's longer than Texas. It's far. It could be as far as from like going from Atlanta to New York. It could be that far.
They are going to St. Mary's, like that was like on the Post-it note, which is I think a hospital. I don't know if there's many St. Mary's in Utah or if there's like one. I should research that probably, but at least that's where all the little maps pointed to. Was, and it's not Utah, but St. Mary's.
So Google Maps says that if you are walking, it would take approximately a week. So I'd say about a month. That's not including waiting out the winter, because the winter's probably going to suck.
Man, that's pretty short. I'm surprised by that. Anyways, sorry.
And also, that's not factoring in the healing time for Joel.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, this is like something to also point out. Do you think Marlene? Do you think they're going to get to Marlene? Sean,
or do you think Marlene's still alive?
Yes. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I was not assuming they were going to Marlene. I wasn't assuming that was part of the plan or expectation. But maybe it is. Maybe Marlene is going to get the heck out of Boston and also go to Utah. By the way, that's the other thing. To get across Colorado, you have to cross the Rocky Mountains, and I don't want to say impossible, but
it's hard.
An amazing challenge, yeah. And there would only be certain roads you could travel, and if those roads are blocked off or covered by bandits or something, they're probably too desolate and cold to bandits to even mess around with. But maybe safe. Maybe up in the mountains might be safer from zombies, or less likely to randomly walk there. Wouldn't have been as many there in the first place. No, I'm not sure, but anyway, I didn't consider the idea that Marlene. She was wounded too. She wouldn't have. I guess maybe she can like pull resources. Maybe she wouldn't have the same trouble getting a vehicle. She would know more contacts along the way. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about Marlene. Just so you know, now that you said that, I started to think, that could be a future thing. But I'm suspicious of it happening this season. I'll say that.
Now it has been 3 months, also. Minimum, probably 4 months. I actually wonder how long before the 3 month jump. So it's been a long time. More so too. So
they started with a vehicle, but then lost it, and 3 months passed. So she had a vehicle, even if she didn't leave for a month. But if she had a vehicle, she could get there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But that also assumes that she doesn't run into a trap, doesn't run out of gas,
exactly.
doesn't, et cetera, et cetera. Have other missions that come up along the way and everything. But yeah, it could be the case.
Cool. All right. So I guess we'll end it here. And we'll be back again next week to talk about episode 7. Thanks, Sean and Horse, for being here. And
let me throw one last thing out. Yeah. I mentioned last time that I had started watching Chernobyl. I have now finished Chernobyl.
Oh.
And it is amazingly good. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
But it is so dark and tragic, I almost don't want to recommend it. I was about to cry at one point. I feel like it was I think it's an important story to tell, an amazingly well-told story. It's a really sad, tragic story. So just be warned if you do get into it. There are going to be some moments that are almost like horror, some moments that are suspenseful, some moments that are really sad, and there are almost no moments of joy or triumph. A couple times when they figure out a way that 1 million people aren't going to die next week, they feel like a success. But the way they did that is because 14 people died just now, and 100,000 people might still die next week. That's like the successes that they have. It's really, really tough to watch.
You said this was based on a true story too, right?
And I think I said I think it happened like in the 70s. It was
loosely based, yeah.
Yeah, well,
1985, yeah. pretty strongly based. I mean, there's some things they can't know, and it kind of made some composite characters, but there really was a nuclear meltdown and a power plant in Chernobyl, and there really was this massive reaction to keep it from ruining all of Europe, and it did ruin the lives of tens of thousands of people. Again, it's some details they can't know, like the Soviets didn't release all the information. Didn't track all the information if they wanted to be public about it, but some things they couldn't hide, like there were just satellite photographs in space of like the nuclear reactor having exploded, and they were reading radioactivity across like Germany and Ukraine and Sweden. They just couldn't keep it secret. It was such a massive event. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on quite such a tangent. But I did feel the need to update.
Yeah, because obviously the director has done seems like 2 successful shows.
Yeah, it's the same. Craig Mazin is the showrunner for Chernobyl and also for The Last of Us, and both of them are great shows.
Awesome. All right, well, we will see you next week then.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.